My brothers and sisters, what is going on? This is Steel Sermon in the house, and on this Thursday morning I will be making a video that I have actually taken a lot of thought into and what I needed to come up with a long time for. So on my previous channel that got strike down, I made a video like this, but now since I'm trying to build up this channel here to be a little bit more successful, I'm going to be talking about today my 10 favorite Steelers that I have ever seen play. Now, yes, when you're a successful franchise like the Pittsburgh Steelers, you're going to have a lot of all-time greats and you're going to have a lot of great players. So naturally, this was very difficult for me to decide, so I have a couple criteria. The criteria is that I had to have seen them play, and I have to be able to tell you about them. And since I'm only 26 years old and I started watching the Steelers and becoming a fan of them when I was 7 years old back in 2002, if you're expecting to see any players from the Steel Curtain era, sorry to disappoint. So these are my 10 favorite Pittsburgh Steelers that I have ever seen play, and let's get on to it. My number 10 favorite Steeler is Marquise Pouncey. Marquise Pouncey was the center for the Pittsburgh Steelers as he was drafted in 2010, and he spent 12 seasons with the Pittsburgh Steelers. In those 12 seasons, he was a 9-time Pro Bowler, a 5-time All-Pro, and he was a perfect 134 for 134 in starting games for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He was seen as a leader on the team, and he was seen as a role model on the team as well. Always had a great relationship with Big Ben, and always had a great, intact, and insightful ways with the offense. He was pretty much the glue that held that offensive line together, and you could tell that when he retired last year, the offensive line took a massive damage hit to it. So yeah, Marquise Pouncey, easily one of the best centers that we've ever had, right up there with good old Mike Webster, and that's why Marquise Pouncey is one of my favorite Steelers to ever play, a more underrated part of the success that the Pittsburgh Steelers have enjoyed. Marquise Pouncey, my number 10 favorite Steeler ever. My number 9 Pittsburgh Steeler is James Farrior, another underrated gem on the Pittsburgh Steelers, as he wasn't originally drafted by the Steelers. He was actually drafted by the New York Jets in 1997, and he was traded to the Steelers in 2002, where he spent 10 seasons with the Steelers, retiring in 2011. In his stint with the Pittsburgh Steelers, he made 2 Pro Bowls, a 2-time All-Pro, won 2 Super Bowls with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he was more seen as the captain of the defense for the Pittsburgh Steelers, despite later drafting and signing some great defensive players along the way. Now just think about that. Out of all the players on defense the Steelers have had in their 90-year history, James Farrior is the all-time leading tackler in Pittsburgh Steeler history. That is incredible to think about. And when he joined the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2002, he enjoyed an 82 tackle season, 141 in 2003, and then during the 2004 season, in his 3rd season with the franchise, he recorded 94 tackles, 3 sacks, and a career-high 4 interceptions. He also finished 2nd in voting behind Ed Reed for NFL Defensive Player of the Year honors. That's how great he was. In his time with the Pittsburgh Steelers, he racked up 740 career tackles, which again is good for the most all-time in franchise history, which allowed him to become into the Steelers Ring of Honor in 2020. So yeah, James Farrior, just a great playmaker, a great teammate, an all-round likable guy. And that's why he's my number 9 Pittsburgh Steeler. Number 8, Cam Heyward. Now Cam, drafted out of The Ohio State University back in 2011, he's still with the team, and for good reason. He's a 5-time Pro Bowler, a 4-time All-Pro, and it really took him a little bit to really put his name on the map for the Steelers, but in 2017, that's when he had his breakout season. where he finished with 45 tackles, 30 on his own, 12 sacks that season, and 3 pass deflections with 15 games and 15 starts. Again, Cam Heyward's a little bit of a late bloomer, but as long as he's playing in the fountain of youth in his 30s like this, I got no problem with it whatsoever. Cam Heyward is big and strong. He has really evolved into one of the elite pass rushers in the league. And Cam Heyward, I think he still has a lot more to go in the tank before he calls it a career. Cam Heyward, it's been so great to see him finally evolve into what he was supposed to be. Just took a little bit of time. But he's not the only late bloomer on this list, as we'll see further down the road. But Cam Heyward, my number 8 Steeler. Number 7, Heath Miller. Heath, as Steeler fans like to chant his name at Heinz Field. He was drafted in 2005, and in his 11 seasons with the Steelers, he made 2 Pro Bowls, a 2-time All-Pro, won 2 Super Bowls with the Steelers, and he was consistently called Big Ben's favorite target. More specifically, he enjoyed a great 2009 season where he had 76 catches for 789 yards and 6 touchdowns, and he started all 16 games. Heath Miller was just the epitome of a security blanket for Big Ben. He knew how to block, he could run good routes, he had good hands, knew how to make good catches, so you kind of figure that it was no secret that why Big Ben called Heath Miller his favorite target on the team, because he had such great chemistry with him, and they were also pretty much the same age as each other, as they were drafted just a year apart. But yeah, I always enjoyed watching Heath Miller. He was a good yak machine, always was able to make a good play on catches, and he knew how to extend a drive as well. So yeah, Heath Miller is my number 7 Steeler that I've seen play. Number 6, James Harrison. James Harrison had a very unique career in the NFL. He was undrafted in 2002, and in 2002 and 03, he spent on the practice squad for the Steelers. Then he actually went on over to the Baltimore Ravens, where he was again on their practice squad in 03 and 04. But then he came back to the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2004 and became a regular starter for them. And he became an immediate franchise icon for the Steelers. Before going to the Cincinnati Bengals in 2013, retiring and then spending 2014 to 17 again with the Steelers, and then the final weeks of the season in 2017 with the New England Patriots, James Harrison had a very unique career, as I said. We all called him Silverback over here, and the Silverback was able to make 5 Pro Bowls, a 4-time All-Pro, 2 rings, and was the 2008 Defensive Player of the Year, in which he set the single-season record for most sacks in a Steeler season with 16 and a half back in 2008. Also in Super Bowl 43, he set a record for the longest play from scrimmage with his 100-yard pick six, before he famously collapsed in the end zone, running out of breath, being surrounded by his teammates. James Harrison was just the epitome of an underrated gem. A lot of people thought that he was too small to be a linebacker, but if you follow this guy on Instagram, seeing that he's 6 foot tall and over 240 pounds, and the way that he works out like that, how could you consider him to be too small to be a linebacker? It's just incredible the amount of work that this guy was able to put in, seeing that he was a practice squad guy for the first 2 years of his career pretty much. You know, James Harrison is still to this day the all-time sack leader for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I think that record is in jeopardy because my number 5 pick for my favorite Steelers of all time is T.J. Watt. TJ has a great chance at being the all-time sack leader for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he might even set it this season. So let's talk about TJ for a little bit. He was drafted in 2017, and I loved the pick when it happened, and it has not let me down since. He has made the Pro Bowl every year since 2018. He's a 4-time All-Pro, won 2 Deacon Jones Awards, and he finally won 2021 Defensive Player of the Year, where he tied Michael Strahan's single-season record for most sacks in a season with 22.5. It is mind-blowing to think that T.J. Watt has done all that in just 5 years in the NFL, and he's only 27 years old. That definitely earned him his contract extension that he got towards the beginning of last year, and I think T.J. Watt, there's just no signs of slowing down. He is explosive on the edge. He has such great legs. He's big and strong, and T.J. Watt is just going to be a force to be reckoned with for years. I think he could have about 2 or 3 more of those Defensive Player of the Years to his resume when it's all said and done, and he might go down as one of the greatest pass rushers of all time. He might just be the greatest pass rusher in Steeler history right now, but I think when it's all said and done, people are going to be talking about this guy, and he might even be better than his brother down in Arizona and J.J. Watt. My number 4 Steeler is a very famous fan favorite in Hines Ward, and for good reason. He was drafted in 1998, was a 3-time All-Pro, a 4-time Pro Bowler, won 2 Super Bowls with the Steelers, and he was Super Bowl 40 MVP. Hines Ward now is actually one of the most polarizing figures in the NFL, because a lot of people think that he shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame, but then there's people that think that he should be in the Hall of Fame. Me personally, I can see both ends of the spectrum. I think that he played well enough to get into the Hall of Fame, but I just don't think the stats justify it. But in no way, shape, or form was Hines Ward a bad player. A lot of people hated him because they thought he was a dirty player with the nasty blocks that he had, but that just shows that he was just a physical player, man. Hines Ward, when you got hit by him, you felt it. He was pretty much putting in a linebacker at wide receiver. Gave some of the nastiest hits of all time, was a physical guy, made some really good catches, and Hines Ward just had the brightest smile on his face that you could ever see on a guy. When you saw that smile on his face, you knew that he meant business. Oh, and by the way, Keith Rivers just broke his jaw listening to this entry. But yeah, Hines Ward, he'll always be one of my favorite Steelers to ever play. Now, for those longtime subscribers and those who know me from way back on my first channel, you probably know who my 3 favorite Steelers are, and honestly, any 3 of these can be arranged in any order, but this is my order. My number 3 favorite Steeler, Jerome Bettis. The Bus, as we all call him. He's another guy that wasn't originally a Pittsburgh Steeler, as he was drafted by the Los Angeles Rams back in 1993, but they terribly misused him as a fullback, and with the Steelers desperately needing a run game entering the 1996 offseason after dropping Super Bowl 30 to the Dallas Cowboys, where Bam Morris was their top runner, the Steelers made a gutsy move and traded for him in 1996, and let's just say it paid off. In his stint with the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Bus made 4 Pro Bowls, was the 96 Comeback Player of the Year, a 2-time All-Pro, the Super Bowl 40 champ, and he's actually second all-time in rushing yards for the Steelers, and he's top 10 all-time. Jerome Bettis just used his size to his advantage. He was a hard guy to tackle. He had all those yards after carry, and he had the nastiest stiff arms ever. Seriously, when you got stiff-armed by the Bus, you'd probably stay down for a little bit. There was no getting up after that. Jerome Bettis is such a fan favorite in Pittsburgh that he actually opened up his own restaurant on the North Shore. I don't know if it's still there, but at one point he actually did have a restaurant in Pittsburgh. That's how beloved that he was there. And oddly enough, in Super Bowl 40, that was hosted in Detroit, Michigan, where the Steelers beat the Seahawks 21-10, and Detroit is Jerome Bettis' hometown. So I guess you can say the Bus made his final stop home before heading down to Canton, Ohio for the Hall of Fame in 2015. But yeah, I always loved the Bus. He was always one of my favorite Steelers to ever play, and he's number 3 on my list. Number 2 is someone who a lot of Steeler fans would probably have at number 1 on their list, but he's number 2 for me, and that's none other than Big Ben Roethlisberger. Big Ben was drafted in 2004 out of Miami of Ohio when the Steelers needed a quarterback real badly, and he fell into their laps after the Cleveland Browns famously passed on him in 2004. Now, before I get into all the good things I'm going to say about Ben, I just want to say this, okay? I know I've been incredibly critical of Big Ben. I know I've said some things that a lot of people didn't like that I said about Big Ben. But that's only because I know the type of quarterback that he was, and I knew that his time was running out and he just needed to call it a career. But with all that being said, nothing will ever take away what Big Ben has done for this franchise. His 13 playoff wins are 6th all-time. His 35 comeback wins are 3rd all-time. His 46 game-winning drives are 5th all-time. A 6-time Pro Bowler, 2-time Super Bowl champion, by far the 2004 NFL Rookie of the Year, where he started his career 13-0 in a 15-1 season for the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2004. 3 Super Bowl appearances, apparently winning 2 of them, 3 AFC Championship Conference titles, 5 AFC Championship game appearances, an NFL record 4 500-yard passing games, another NFL record for most completions in a game, the longest winning streak to start a career, number 5 all-time in passing yards, and he's also part of the 400 touchdown pass club, several other NFL records to show. If this is not a first ballot Hall of Famer to you guys, I don't know what to tell you. Big Ben was just such a unique talent. You know, his mobility in the pocket and being able to extend plays for a guy that big, who's probably big enough to be a linebacker, 6'5", 240 pounds, so hard to bring down, a rocket for an arm, and a true leader on the team. Big Ben is a type of generational talent that's going to be hard to replace. When I think of Big Ben's career, I don't think of the motorcycle accident. I don't think of the rape allegations. I don't think of him being the most sacked quarterback of all time behind a porous offensive line for the majority of his career. I think of stuff like the Super Bowl 43 game-winning drive. I think of him lighting up the Colts and Ravens in back-to-back weeks in 2014 for 500 yards and 6 touchdown passes. I think of all the times he was able to evade the tackles. I was thinking of all the times that he was scrambling in the pocket, allowing his receivers to make the most of their routes and get open. Those are the stuff that I think about when I think of Big Ben. Probably the most underappreciated quarterback of all time, and it's just going to be so hard to watch Steeler football now that number 7 is not going to be under center anymore. He spent his entire 18-year career with the Pittsburgh Steelers, which is another NFL record, by the way. So Big Ben, regardless of what I may have said about him on my channel, all the criticisms I've given him, I still love him. He'll always be one of my favorite Steelers to ever play, and I mean absolutely no disrespect to Terry Bradshaw, but in my eyes, Big Ben is the quarterback for this franchise. He is. I don't think anyone can replicate him. I don't think anyone can duplicate what he did. And no one will ever be able to take away what he's done for this franchise. Big Ben is a very close second for my favorite Steeler ever. So with all that being said, who could possibly top a true leader like Big Ben? Well, you're about to find out. My favorite Steeler that I've ever seen play, number 43, Troy Polamalu. Now, Troy was drafted in 2003 out of LSU, and in his career with the Pittsburgh Steelers, he made quite an impact. 8 Pro Bowls, 6-time All-Pro, 2 Super Bowl rings, the 2010 Defensive Player of the Year, and made some of the most mind-blowing plays that you'll ever see. Much like Big Ben, when I think of Troy Polamalu, I think of his snap anticipation. I think of him jumping over the offensive line for a safety blitz. I think of his one-handed interceptions. I think of his fingertip interception against the Chargers. I think of his game-sealing pick 6 against the Baltimore Ravens in the 2008 AFC Championship. I think of him jumping over the line perfectly to time a field goal and block it. That's what I think of when I think of Troy Polamalu. And it's very easy to see why that he was considered a premier safety of his era, known for his range, explosiveness, and impact on the field, as well as playing a key role in the Steelers' success during the 2000s. Troy Polamalu, you could argue that he has a case for being the greatest strong safety to ever play the game. Now, this is different from a free safety for all you Ed Reed apologists in the comments, because Ed Reed played free safety. That's different from a strong safety. Free safeties generally guard deeper in coverage, while strong safeties are more stronger than a free safety, and they play closer to line and they're able to record more tackles. So yes, they are safeties, but they're two different kinds of safeties. So yeah, with Polamalu, you could argue that he has a case for being the greatest strong safety to ever play. And I wouldn't disagree with you. Not even if I was a Steeler fan, I wouldn't disagree with you, man. But yeah, Polamalu, just an incredible talent. And I just think that when Polamalu retired forcibly by Kevin Colbert, the only time I really ever disrespected Kevin Colbert, to be honest with you, you could tell that this secondary was going to take a massive blow when Polamalu called it a career. And I still think the secondary's still looking to rebuild from it. Sure, Minkah Fitzpatrick looks really good right now, but he's just not on the same level that Troy Polamalu was. Mainly because Minkah's free safety, but you just can tell that that secondary that we have, it's just missing that extra explosiveness that Polamalu had when he was here. That's why he'll always be my favorite Steeler to ever play. His complete game-changing ability, his complete playmaking ability, and just overall his just execution that he had. That's what won me over with Polamalu. And if you can't tell, he was a first ballot Hall of Famer back in 2020. Yeah, no duh. But yeah, Polamalu, he'll always be my favorite Steeler to ever play. And there you have it. Those are my 10 favorite Steelers that I've ever seen play. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Who are some Steelers that you really enjoyed watching? I'm really open to everybody's opinion. But yeah, these are my 10 favorite Steelers to ever play. And like I always say, if you're new to the channel, do me a favor, like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Instagram and on Twitter. The links are posted down below. This is Steel Sermon checking on out for the day, and may God be with you all.